You say to the boy, open your eyes. When he opens his eyes and sees the light, you make him cry out, saying, grow, grow. O light, come forth. O light, come forth. O light, rise. O light, rise. O light, ascend. O light, ascend. O light, thou who art without, come in. If he opens his eyes and does not see the light, you make him close his eyes. You call him again. Formula. O darkness, remove thyself before him. O light, bring the light into me. Shoah, that is in the abyss, bring in the light to me. O Osiris, who is Neshama, who is in the Neshama boat, bring in the light to me. These four winds that are without, bring in the light to me. O thou in whose hand is the moment that belongeth to these hours, bring in the light to me. Anubis the good oxherd, bring in the light to me, for thou shalt give protection to me here today. I am Horus, the son of Isis, the good son of Osiris. Thou shalt bring in the entities of this place of judgment, and thou shalt cause them to do my business, and they shall cause my affair to proceed. Net be'au, thou shalt cause them to do it, for I am Turamnai, Amnai, Mes, Turamnai, Amnai, Bes, or Nu Orth, O Nur Oath, or Nu Orth, or Nu Orth, Pahoroth, Eo, a little king, Tauhor, let this child prosper, whose face is bent down to this oil. Escorting, Saukos to me, until he come forth. Septim is my name, Septim is my correct name, for I am Lot, Maulat, Taulat, Tat. Pine Tat is my correct name. O great entities whose name is great, appear to this child without alarming or deceiving truthfully. You utter these charms 7 times. You make him open his eyes. If the light is good, and he says, Anubis is coming in, you call before him. Formula. O Riz Muriz. O To Urto. O this beautiful male born of Heri Eu, the daughter of the gnome. Come to me, for thou art this lotus flower that came forth in the lotus of Panastor, and that illuminates the whole earth. Hail, Anubis. Come to me, the high, the mighty, the chief over the mysteries of those in the underworld, the pharaoh of those in Yamanteh, the chief physician, the pharaoh of Yesur, whose face is strong among the entities. Thou manifestest thyself in the underworld before the hand of Osiris. Thou servest the souls of Abydos, for they all live by thee. These souls, namely of the sacred underworld, come to the earth. Show thyself to me here today. Thou art Thoth. Thou art he that came forth from the heart of the great Agathodamon, the father of the fathers of all the entities. Come to the mouths of my vessel today, and do thou tell me, answer in truth to everything that I shall inquire about without falsehood therein. For I am Isis, the wise, the words of whose mouth are mine, come to pass. Formula. 7 times you say to the boy, speak to Anubis, saying, go forth, bring in what they consider to be gods. When he goes after them and brings them in, you ask the boy, saying, have the gods came in? If he says they have come, and you see them, you cry before them. Formula. Raise yourself for me. Raise yourself for me. Bashoah, raise thyself, Mera. The great of 5, Didiao, Tenziao, do justice to me. Thoth, let creation fill the earth with light. O thou who art in Ibis in his noble countenance, thou noble one that enters the heart, let truth be brought forth. Thou great entity, whose name is great, say 7 times, you say to the boy, speak to Anubis, saying, bring in a table for those that are considered to be gods. Let them sit. When they are seated, you say, bring in of wine. and broach it for these considered to be gods. Bring in some bread, let them eat, and let them drink. And truly, the parts of yourself, it's your own psychology that relates to these different father, son, judge of the dead. These various personifications of God are really references to your own psychology. So, ark za na pa hum hol zaun na yurtuk f one yurtuf netuf nu upon win ark ta arf ash zau zip Supson pa win Pierre Supson pa win Thassa Supson pa win Pierre Supson pa win pa nut na bal a hun f hub nutaf one yertuf nutaf tum nu apa win ark arf hatum yertuf erk ash arf the waham samtut pakka alk nahataf pa win an pa win ya han pashai nt han pa nun an pa win ni han wasar nat har nashmat an pa win ni han pa han pia han pia tu nat bal an pa win ni han pa nat pa shub pa ni wanatu tataf ni pa win ni han anap pamer never an pa win ya han se atta sa are pie pa ho sonic har ast pus never na wasser art nye natura ta set wiete ark ta aru ar na pe hab sa ta tat yept that boo ark atie aru ar namas the twor amne mas subson ornu orf subson ornu orf subson pa orf paharf ya o wa satan tu har mia was pia alo the te harf pa te apa na na tak pa near sabak sha nataf pierre satum run yet satum pa run na mat zank lam ta thu lot tot pien at parent na mat pa nature a na te ne au run one up here au apa ob os apasausit os up let's ya ark asne shunasup 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 arket arf one irtup atap pa win at nia natap za anap aya a han ark ash hatap samtat ay rieds mu rieds ay ta war ta aya pia hot nafar amas har you ta shirt ta namt nia za natak pia session ar pierer hanta serpet and pa nostra nat ar win a pa ta trath ye anap nia pa ye pa serpa hari yes shut na ta piet pa ra na amnat pa war sien never na wasser pa nahat harf out the true ark ha ant kiet nahar tataf na wasser ark shums bia na abat sa el an nabak trau nia bia wa ta niet to start apat one hak araf kia na bahu natak fahwat natak pa ar pier na hataf pa shy au pa yetu subsan na a true throw ar dru na pe na na pa hawa natak za ne wa mat her matat nab nat shen harb amen matat ase amo za nak sat tawrahat nata nazan re khap zamt sap ta rahat nata naz nar ya khap zamt sap ta rahat nata na za na re khap zamt sap ta rahat nata naz riya hap zamt sap ta rahat nata naz re hap zamt sap ta rahat nata za riya hap zamt sap tahrahat ta naz re hap zimp sip tahrahat ta naz re hap zimp sip ark zin pa ham hal ze as yes na anap za مش بل an na natru han eth مش masu nataf anyetu ahan ark shin pa alu zahar na atru aya ahan eth za haru aya natak nu aru ark ash hatu zamtat nahak nye sipson pa shaya nahastak mer'a paworte tasyet syub tanazyu aar mat are what nye aur ame ma pa tan win hub ma harf shipas ak ap hat mie ta hapat mat pa nature nate ne awa runaf za zap harf shipas ak ap pa hat mie ta hap ta mat pa nature nata ne awa runaf za zap harf shipash ak ap hat mie ta hap ta mat pa nature nata ne awa runaf za zap harf shipshash ak apa hat mie ta hap ta mat pa nature nata ne awa runaf za zap zap ma harf shipas ak ap hat yet hap mat pa nature nata ne aw runaf za sap ma harf shipas ak ap hat yet hapat maat pa nature nata ne aw runaf za zap harf shipas ak ap hat mie ta hap maat pa nature nata aw runaf za sap ark sanap hamhol za as yes anap za ana wa takas hanhar natru mie hamasu aw hamas ark za ana wa arab han kalpath an natru ana hinut han mie wamu mie suru. And I'll turn to the comment right now here of column 2. And I guess I bumped into the table or something shifting, so Excuse that, the noise of the screeching and whatever. Alak is like oak, but the prefix suggests an analogy of ali or cease. Atne. And an entity that's thought to be considered to be a god, or at least treated as one anyways, is Sen Psais. And we have this as an agatho da imon, the intelligence, the genius, anti-personal entity. Not the same as an adversary, by the way, but it's usually of the opposite gender, in at least the Greco-Roman way of thinking. Sheh indicates that it's related to destiny, sort of like many and God in the book of Isaiah. Pa she nut hun pa nun is like omagas da imon o pinun okthonios. Shmet is the bark of Yusur, which Yusur is to be traveling on. And ruling stars and astrological charts are, of course, considered important in all this stuff. You have Epi Kalu, Ton Tas, Aras, Kaiton, Tas, Hemeras Theon. So, might be related to protection or something, or an amulet or something, but it's, well, an amulet is basically a device that you think protects you. But some of these things may be unintelligible, perhaps magical gibberish. I don't really consider speaking in tongues quite to that degree, but it's more the meaning is attached than inherent, Wete is the entities of the place. Ne Thebu is an entity like Penetbuse, kind of unknown in itself. Quetedna Sutton might be like Kawiens, but it might be gibberish. Pa, or might be Sha. Sabuk is Salkos, and Yunpu would typically be thought to be sufficient, but Sabuk is called along with that. I mean, if you're referring to entities of different things, I mean, why not list, oh, this one over here is kind of like this, so you may be missing something, if you're not worshiping all divinity at once, then you understand the logic of what's going on here. Runyut is like To Anama To Al Athenon. And so we're looking at some Egyptian ones here. Later on, we have Egyptian characters. So we'll get to that in a second here. As is a transcription. It's supposed to be a transcription of the Greek words aphobos, apsiustos, ap al hathia, and it's supposed to be a determinative of some foreign element here that you connect to it. Ane is a peculiar sort of writing. It's not your normal sort of writing. But you have, okay, but here in the text, you have, you know, the guy sticking out, standing with his hand sticking out. And or he in Coptic is how it's being represented. And that's not quite the same thing as the ya interjection. You know, the guy sitting with his hand in his mouth is the determinative. And the usual interjection in religious texts is he, ya, which occurs as ha'i, same determinative, but the guy standing with his hand out does show distinct meaning, but sometimes there's variation like that. And riez mu riez, lot mu lot, vru mie vru, lil mu lil, nemet is some sort of female entity, probably of a destructive nature, or by fire or by cutting off it. Horus on the lotus is referred to. And we have Ekais, more Phon, Nah, Piu, Paidas, Epi, Loto, Kath, Hamenos in the Greek. O, Epi, Tu. Lotu, Kath, Hamenos, Kai, Lap, Poridon, Tan, Alhan, Oiku, Menhan. Also, that the whole thing's being referred to. Sachin, Serpt, is useful, but the discussion of the names of the lotus, Serpent, like Shishan, are paralleled the lotus bud and the flower. Ursian, chief physician, is not always a physician, but sometimes a important figure among Egyptian officials, but connectable to Jahota and Yenpu are united under Hermananubis. Kerya Sashut, chief over the mysteries, is a title that can be used for both. For they all live by the, even when referring to a death entity, we are getting into the area of a connection that, because it's the entity of change, all things that change in this life, it totally makes sense to connect that principle to that. The yut subsun may be read pa yet itu, or perhaps it's read differently in different contexts, right? Or there's different variations of ones in 8-2, ones here. The fathers of the entities occurs probably, there's plenty of hymns where it's like God, people calling God their father, and God the father of this and that of the other, and maybe they're the sons of that, and various things. Aiselthe kai krahmati son. Inquire the answer. Krahmati sign. And we have a Coptic word for begging, an asking question, possibilities meaning here. Harna natru I. Okay. And you see them. You want to encourage the person to have an experience. You want to open the possibility, and they're accepting that they can have an experience if you're dealing with an individual. Ortia is the title of the high priest of Trahote et moon, and applied to the entity himself as well. And in connection with this, Trahote is called the entity 5 times great, the mighty lord of Kmun. And the Ptolemaic name of Portis and Portia, Portis, no doubt founded on the abbreviated pronunciation of the name, which we have with its full value, but we are to you. And we have Mia Arakeme with not really knowing what the name is, some sort of imperative. Perhaps Mericom is taken as a magical name. Well, if your name is in relation to what you're worshiping, then you kind of, that is a magical name. And then we have another imperative, and Akbar Hut means to enter the heart. So open up your emotional sense to the spiritual formulas that you're using here. And what Araput, a vessel of wine, perhaps Karapion of the Rosetta Stone, the word Hut, silver, in contracts to Tiffin. So just like people say a beer to say just a vessel or a glass or something, people would say a wine. But some of these words kind of can go beyond using the alcoholic form. You can just use whatever grain or juice of a plant if you're trying to just use the proper substance. You don't have to be intoxicated. But I understand when dealing with some of the, with the demons and whatnot, people are going to, oh, the demons want me to get drunk, so I'll get drunk. Well, I mean, that's your choice. But as far as the ritual aspect, I'm not sure that you have to do that.